All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome once again to another episode of the Remarkable Coach podcast. As always, I'm your host, Michael Pacheco. And today with me, I have Jeff Sesol. Jeff, did I pronounce your name right? I did.
You
Good.
did. Good job.
We usually cover that before the interview, but we were talking about other stuff, so I forgot. Jeff has 30, more than 30 years of being an entrepreneur, a consultant, and a coach. Jeff's passion is to help as many companies as possible grow and be the best that they can be. He does this through business, executive, and leadership coaching, along with providing content through blogs, podcasts, and a YouTube channel that provides business interviews. Jeff's goal is simply to help businesses in any way possible. Jeff, welcome to the Remarkable Coach.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Great intro. I love that. That was right on point.
Nice. Fantastic. So I like to always open up the interview by inviting my guest to just tell us a little bit more about yourself in your own words and what and why you got into coaching.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, the quick story is that I spent 13 years in corporate America and got out of that. And now I'm 30 plus years in the entrepreneurial world, and I love that. I've had several over the years. I've had several of my own companies that were successful. I always like to talk a little bit about the one that was so much fun. It was called Free Drive, FREE Drive.com. Back in I'm going way back now. This is 1998. But it was a small thing that we launched where people could upload a file from their PCs to our servers and get to it from any web browser. Back in 1998, that did not exist. It's what we know today as web-based storage. I'm one of the founding fathers of that, which is my small little fun, piece that I like to share
I
because it was
think
just a crazy time.
I think I remember that website.
Do you
I
really? I love
I
that.
am I am 90, I'll say 98% certain that I
Yeah.
used that website in the past.
You and 28 million other users, by the way.
That's crazy. Yeah,
Isn't it?
nice. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
by 2001, we had 18 million. And then when I left in 2003, we sold it in 2001.
Yeah.
And so I went on for 2 years. I was a CTO.
Yeah.
And we had, by the time we sold it, or I left in 2003, we had 28 million users worldwide using it. It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, amazing time, fun time. But I started after that, after I left there, I just started consulting with companies. One of my passions became helping companies automate their operations so they could grow. People get bogged down sometimes because they can't get out of their own way and they got to do it a certain way. And I used to come in and just help them to automate the operations and do that kind of stuff. And so I did that for many years. And that kind of flipped into people saying, "Hey, I'm trying to grow my business, Jeff. You've got a lot of experience. Could you help me?" And I'm like, "Sure." And so that kind of went through the process. And then recently, September of 2021, I decided to not do consulting because it's one-to-one and do coaching because it's one-to-many.
Mhm.
So here's the quick story. I tell people there's a few important birthdays in your life. When you're 16, because you can drive. When you're 21, because you're legal. When you're 40, statistically, your life is half over. So you look in the mirror and you say, okay, what do I want to do while I still can from my bucket list? And I wanted to go skydiving.
Mhm.
So I went skydiving. I don't know if you've ever done it, but you go 14,000 feet up, you tumble out of a plane, you're falling at 120 miles an hour. It's hard to breathe. One little movement of your hand, you're spinning out of control. Everything is happening so fast, you can't see where you're at and you can't see where you're going. But at 5,500 feet, you pull the chute.
Mhm.
Suddenly you can breathe again, you're in control, you can see where you're at and you can see where you want to go. And I tell a lot of people, isn't that a lot like being in business? Right? It's just, that's how it feels.
Mhm.
And so I decided to launch Pull the Chute as a way to get companies to literally pull the chute. And I have a lot of them that say, "Hey, I'm pulling the chute this week." And what that means is let's meet for an hour a week where you can take a break. We kind of, talk through what's going on in the business world,
Mhm.
where you need help, what's some of the struggles, what's your plans, and we kind of lay out a process for them. And then the cool part for me is that I get to hold them accountable then to some of those things, right? Because when you're a business owner, it's hard because you have no one to kind of says, "No, you need to, we're doing this and you need to kind of finish this up and get that done." So I do that a lot. The other thing that is fun for me and I think makes me different type of coach is that I encourage my clients when they're in a situation or if they have a great idea that's really hot, that they want to talk about, don't wait until we're meeting. Text me and say, "Hey, do you have a few minutes to talk about this?" Get me on the phone and let's talk through it.
Mhm.
Especially when it's a situational experience. They're going through something with an employee, they're not sure how to handle it, they're frustrated.
Yeah.
It's when you do it in the hindsight, it's not as effective. If I can do it in the moment, and coach them through the best way to approach it, talk them through it. And a lot of times those are all emotional conversations.
Hmm.
So I get them to be unemotional for a little bit and to approach it like, a business owner or someone that cares and all that. Then it's more important. And I'm a big advocate. My tagline is grow your people, grow your company.
Yeah.
Big advocate that if you can take care of your people and treat them the way that they're supposed to be treated, that you're going to grow your company. I mean, I always tell people the great resignation is not about money. It's about the way people are treated within their organization, and they're looking for better companies to work for that appreciate what they do.
Sure.
So anyway, that's probably a little longer than you wanted, but
It's
it kind
great.
of gets you to this place where I'm at.
I love it. I love it. I think we have a lot in common. I wanted to go skydiving on my 40th birthday.
Okay.
Unfortunately, my 40th birthday was April 21st of 2020.
Yeah.
So we were all locked down at that point, and
Yeah, right.
I don't think anybody was skydiving. So I have not yet made that happen, but that is definitely on the bucket list.
Well, the
Um,
cool part was I did it the second time, and
yeah,
it was a completely different experience because I knew what to expect.
sure.
The first time it's like frantic, right? And I've actually found the video because I had it videotaped. I actually found the video. Of course, it was 1998, 1999, somewhere in there, because it was right before my 40th, and it was by the time we digitized it, and then I was able to use it. It's almost black and white because it was on a VHS tape, but it looks really cool because it looks vintage now.
That's awesome. I love it. I want to circle back to something that you said during your kind of intro there. You mentioned you help get your clients unemotional to help them make decisions in the moment if something's on the fly. Your example was if there's an issue with an employee, for example. What do you do to do that? How do you do that?
It's interesting, and I have a very clear philosophy in this. And this works with anybody that you're working with that's emotional. What I like to do is just say, okay, tell me about the situation, and let them blurt out and talk through and just spew
Vent.
whatever happened and get it all out.
Yeah.
Because I find that once people can get everything out that's bothering them, here's what happened. He said this. I really wanted to say this. I didn't. I took a moment because you reminded me not to do that. Here's all my struggles. Let them get it all that out, right?
Yeah.
When people get all that out, it's like the age of, when someone takes you off and they say, write an email and then delete it. It's because you got all these thoughts that you want to get out. And then what I do is once they do that, then I start asking questions, but I don't interrupt them. I just let them spew that out, right? Get the emotion out. And then I start asking questions. And then the ultimate goal is, where do you want this to end up? Right? Where do you want to be when this is done? You got to have a plan. You can't just go in there and willy-nilly it. Here's what's going to happen. So, do you want to reprimand them because of what they did? And again, you can have a conversation, not an emotional one, about reprimanding them by pointing out, here's what you saw. Here's things that we don't do this way. We're, as a company, as a culture, we do things a certain way. Here's what happened. We don't do that. If this is something that you can't do, then we're going to talk about that. But I need you to start behaving in a certain way. Maybe it's the way they talk to people. But again, when you talk to the person that they're struggling with, it becomes more of a conversation than an emotional accusation. Because the moment you start accusing them and you go in with accusations, they're going to get defensive, and we all do it.
Sure.
And then it's not a conversation anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And neither one of them are listening. So
Yeah.
my goal is to get them to spew. Let me then make conversation so they can hear what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That calms them all down, so that when they have their conversation, now
Uh-oh.
we kind of talk through is, okay, now what I want you to do is ask them where their struggle is. What's bothering them. Let them talk. Don't interrupt them. And then kind of come back and take a few notes if you need to, but then come back and say, okay, here's what happened here. Here's why I did this. Here's what happened. So that it's a conversation. And that's really the goal that I try to get them to. Have a
Great.
conversation, not an emotional screaming match, yelling match, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. I'm a big, I practice writing big, long, whiny, complainy emails and then deleting them. I do that a lot. Maybe not a lot.
Yep.
I do that with relative frequency, perhaps. What do you think that is? Like, what is it about, humans, the human condition that that this process of venting, of getting the garbage out, how does that create space for, you know, intelligent decisions that come from, a grounded place?
So think about what happens when we get into discussions. So my family, I have three daughters, and my wife and I, right? So there's five of us. Two of my daughters and I could hold on three conversations all at once and make comments back and forth and go like crazy.
Mhm.
My wife and my youngest daughter are like, because they're not as fast of thinkers, right? So I think the human mind is that when someone says something that we want to justify or that we want to let them know why we did it a certain way, instead of letting them finish, we cut them off, right? And and so what happens is we never quite get out what we want to get out, okay? And I'm a big, my wife and I, whenever we have arguments, that's our biggest issue, right? Because that's my natural reaction, is to defend myself.
Sure.
And it's hard not to do that. But to answer your question, the reason that works, like typing out the emails or just letting someone get it out, is that there's stuff in our head that we want to make sure that we get it all out. And if we're allowed to get it all out, whether it's an email or to talk it out, it clears the brain, right? So now it's like, okay, I got out and at the end I kind of go, okay, we're good. Everything's out. Yeah. Okay, great. Now my turn. And then you can pick that stuff apart and ask questions, and then you can explain, well, this is why, just so you know, this is why I did it. And it's all about how you respond back to, right? So the interesting part about emails is that, we write an email out because it allows us to clear our heads and think clearly, and we delete it. When we're having conversations, it's a little bit different, because a lot of times, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. If you cut me off, I don't hear anything you're saying, because I know what's in my head, what I want to get out, and then I'm not hearing anything that you're saying. So by allowing, and that's one of the things I teach, whether it's, and I do that with my leadership coaching as well. And then executives that struggle, when it's one-on-one with them, same thing. That's a big piece of one of the things, and it's hard because for years they've just been responding. It's almost like they feel like they're under attack and they got to respond back, versus letting it all out and then approaching it in a calm manner. It just works so much better, and the results 90% of the time are exactly where you want them to be, which is the other part of that, right? Where do you want this conversation to go? What do you want the other person to understand when you're done?
Yeah.
And it works much better when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, you're literally creating space for logic and reason to come back in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is how you want to make business decisions, right? You don't want to do that. It's hard to take, if you're coming from this place of extreme emotion. I think there's a lot of value in emotions, but in terms of, business decisions, having crucial conversations, right? You've got to, if you want to be taken seriously, you can't come from a place of fire and emotions and all of this, right? You've got to come feeling grounded.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, the other side of that too, when I was younger, I used to make not only emotional decisions, but then get frustrated when things weren't happening in a proper amount of time, which is another issue that I learned over time. Is if I can just be patient, it might only take another day, but the result is going to be what it should have been versus me forcing it. And I'm telling you, almost every time when I forced a decision or I forced a situation, it blew up in my face. And if all I would have done was waited a day, maybe 2 days, the longest, maybe a week, it works out where it should have been, right? Especially if you're making big decisions, big business decisions. Maybe you're partnering with someone and you're like, is this the right thing to do? And somebody's like, no, we got to do this now. We got to do it today. I so push away from the table when I have someone trying to make me make a decision right now.
Yeah.
Anymore. And I never used to be like that, but that's one of the things I learned over the years. And things I try to coach my people is, if someone's really pushing you to make a decision, then it's a bad decision. Just take a breath, again, pull the chute, take a breath, feel in control, see where you're at and see where you want to go. And usually it works out better.
So I understand the idea of not succumbing to, let's call it peer pressure, or pressure from a partner or something like that. What do you think about the idea of ready aim fire, for example, right? Like let's throw some stuff on the wall and see what sticks. Let's agile development, that sort of thing. Fail fast, learn quickly, that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that kind of mentality?
Um, I'm not a huge fan of fail fast.
Hmm.
Um, I'm a big fan of 2% change.
Okay.
Okay. And I say I have a book that's currently in the editor. It's called Pull the Shoot, Grow Your People, Grow Your Company. And one of the chapters I dedicate to 2% change, which creates compound results.
Hmm.
Because I'm a firm believer, you can make a small, this week make 2% change, next week make 2% change. Suddenly you've made a 10% change, but but you had controlled changes as you went through that, right? So you made a small change and it was like, what's the result? Okay, I like that. Okay,
Hmm.
let's go again. I like that, right? I've been down the road a couple times where we've done this, fail fast piece, and I have failed completely fast, right? And you don't want to hit the wall moving 120 miles an hour. It hurts.
Sure.
It hurts, both mentally and financially.
Yeah.
Um, and so what I really find is that, 2 plus 2, when you do it in 2% changes,
Hmm.
2 plus 2 does not equal 4. It's more like 8
Hmm.
because you're building on where you want to go.
Hmm.
Right. And you're seeing, and you can do it quickly. I mean, you can do it within a week or 2 weeks, or you can do it within a month or two. It depends what you want to do.
Sure.
A couple of times, like one of my last consulting gigs, I was brought into a company that there was only 18 people or 15 people when I started. They were rowing in probably 15 different directions. There was no clear, here's where we want to go. And the problem was they were stuck at a level and they couldn't get beyond it because they weren't all, as I say, rowing together, right? So I start making small little changes over about a 2-month period.
Hmm.
Once they all started understanding where the company wanted to go and they were all aboard, because people hate change, right?
Sure.
So small little changes was easy to do. They didn't even realize we were changing stuff, to be honest. I
Uh-huh.
would just say, hey, let's try it this way. And they'd go, all right. And then they do that, right? And then that became kind of the norm that way, and then
Yeah.
this became the norm that way. All of a sudden,
Six
they
weeks
start,
later, there's a new process.
yeah, right. All of a sudden they were hockey sticking. I mean, we grew them 348%
Yeah.
over 2 years.
Nice.
But we had to get them all going the same way with the
Yeah.
same mindset and the same thought, right? So that's more where I like to, to play in the sandbox is that the small little changes that you can measure, and see what's, I'm all about change. I don't have all the answers. And I tell people that, look, I don't have all the answers, but we're
Hmm.
going to talk about it and we're going to come up with an answer that we can all live with.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
we're going to move forward,
Yeah.
because the world changes every day. So who has all the answers? Nobody.
Yeah.
But if you know how to ask the questions, and if you got someone, again, which is what I like to do from the outside, because I'm not in it day to day, right?
Hmm.
So I'm not, it's the forest and the trees thing. I'm not that close to it, where I can take an objective view from outside and go, are you thinking about this? Or are you thinking about that? And let's look at your financials and see if they make sense. I had one client that was so excited. He goes, look at the financials. I got the expenses cut way down. I literally took 20 seconds, looked at him and went, where's your payroll? He goes, it's in there. I go, no, it's not. There's no way. I go, I know what your payroll is, and it's not here. He goes, wait a minute. Oh, crap. Right. But again, he was so close to it. He
Uh-huh.
thought he was doing this great job. Literally, 20 seconds into it, I knew immediately something was wrong.
Yeah.
Something outside. And that's the fun part, that really makes it special for me.
I mean, I think that's a great example that highlights how important it is for anyone running a business, anyone at a high level of leadership, to have a coach,
Yep.
someone, a second set of eyes that's removed from the situation, that can come in and see things with a fresh set of eyes, right? And just have a fresh perspective. Because when you're mired in the day to day, it can be so difficult to recognize the forest from the trees,
Yeah.
because you're right in the middle of it. And when you're in
Yep.
the eye of the hurricane, you don't see all the
Yep.
chaos that's swirling around you necessarily.
Yep.
Not
Absolutely.
to mix metaphors.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's like, when we had free drive one time, the database crashed,
Huh?
and we were in panic mode, right, to
Hmm.
do stuff. And here I am trying to make decisions on the best solution. And they brought in someone from the outside that looked at it and said, I have a theory that how we can fix this. And I
Hmm.
said, I'm all ears, let's go.
Yeah.
And it ended up being an undocumented procedure, but it worked, right?
Uh-huh.
But he was like, I am 90% confident this is going to work.
Uh-huh.
But I was like too close to it. I was just trying to figure out how to save the data,
Right.
not thinking about outside things, right? So we brought in this, it was great. And that taught me that lesson.
Yeah.
That was a big one where it was like, I was just so close to it.
Yeah. That's a great one. Jeff, tell me about your clients. Who are your clients?
I have clients all over the board. And people always say, do you have a certain vertical? And I go, look, I have an importer that imports champagne from France. I have a painting company. I have a custom housing company. I have a dermatologist. I have a tea company that wants to start launching a tea shop, which
Nice.
is kind of fun. I have a Pilates company, and I have an estate planner.
Uh-huh.
So it's the spectrum of things, right? But my philosophies are pure. From a business standpoint, I follow certain things, right?
Sure.
And when I go into companies, their goal is they want to grow.
Hmm.
My goal is to not only grow them, but make them feel like they're at the next level, where people kind of look at them and go, oh, this is the tea tree company. I want their tea, right? Or you're, the dermatology. I want to go to you because you have this great reputation, right? So for me, one of the things that I really focus on, and I focus on 5 areas, which is marketing, systems, sales, finance, and people. Those are the 5 pillars, if you want to call it that I really build the foundation of what we do for our clients.
Hmm.
But one of the biggest things I focus on is what's your brand, what's your reputation, what do people see when they see you, what's your do you have a slogan like mine's grow your people, grow your company? What's your elevator pitch when people say what do you do,
Hmm.
right? For me, when I talk about pull the chute, I say and I got it down to 30 seconds, right? Let me tell you about 16, 21, 40 pair, jumping out of a plane, blah blah. The funny part is when I tell that story, almost everybody goes, oh my gosh, I get that. That makes all the sense in the world. Now, when I walk around town, people walk up and they go, hey, you're the pull the chute guy. What was your name again? you know, but that's, that's kind of key. So, so I have clients all over and really, business is business if we follow certain aspects of it. And of course, to help them in certain things, like the dermatologist, I had to really dig in a little bit and learn how the insurance side worked, right?
Yeah.
How to file insurance, because I just wanted to understand a little better. Now I got that, right? So that's good. The estate planner, not as much. I don't need to know what he does as much as how is he getting clients? What are we doing? So we're working through the better way to get clients on that. The tea tree company, we're just in the beginning stages of that, but we're talking about setting up a tea club where it's a monthly tea club, like a wine club, that you get. He has 40 blends that are high end. It's not like Earl Grey, or green tea. These are, he makes his own blends. And so Luis would describe why this blend, what's in it, what you can expect from it in a video. And then they get, on a monthly basis, they've registered and they get their tea for the month.
Nice.
Thing, right? So again, I'm looking for those aspects all the time of what's going to help them. Because one of the struggles most of my clients do is it's this yo-yo. It's up and down, right? One month they're really high, next month they're low, high, low. And we got to kind of flatten that out for them, because the stress levels that come with that, are they're killers. It's just really hard to deal with that. So one of the goals I look at most of the companies is, how can we level or flatten out your income and then grow it from there? Because it's gonna make you feel a whole lot better about what you're doing.
Yeah. The subscription model is a no-brainer for as a solution to that kind of problem, especially for a tea company that can do custom blends and videos. This and that. It's great. Yeah.
Right.
Love it. Love it. How do you? So where do you get your clients, Jeff? And how do you market yourself and your services?
So I'm based out of Nashville area, and I'm focused in Gallatin, which is where I live, Gallatin, Tennessee. And so one of the things that I've done here is that I've really jumped into the chamber. I've jumped into some of the volunteering events. We have a lot of historical homes around here. So I'm on the, the committees a couple times, a couple events. I help plan with those,
Mhm.
just to kind of be part of the community because that's a big
Sure.
thing here. You know, probably 2/3 of my clients right now are locally to Gallatin, which is great.
Okay.
I
Nice.
have two in Atlanta, which was just kind of happened.
Mhm.
Someone I knew someone that needed help, and that happened, and that led to another one. And those guys love me down there. They're actually trying to help me expand down to Atlanta a little more.
Nice.
But probably the biggest thing that I love to do is we do LinkedIn outreach. I have a team, by the way.
Mhm.
I'm not by myself because I need someone to hold me accountable,
Mhm.
right? So we meet once a week and we talk about where the clients are, what's in the funnel, what's our marketing for the week and for the month, what are we focusing on. We started doing workshops that we do in person, usually 12 to 15 people. It's very intimate,
Mhm.
where we take them through a 3-hour workshop and we talk about those 5 pillars,
Mhm.
but we make it very interactive. I start out the whole thing with tell me your name, your company name, when you started, and your biggest challenge. And then what I try to do is take all those challenges that I heard and fit them into the workshop at some point.
Mhm.
Like you said, one of your challenges, is finance. Okay, so we talk about finance. Let's talk about one of your challenges there. Okay, or your challenge is getting your social media out, or your getting out there across that. So when I talk about marketing, we talk about that, and the group ends up supporting each other. It was really great, where they're going, hey, did you ever try this? And this did for me, and this worked. So not only did we do a workshop where we were helping them kind of reanalyze what they do, we helped them build a little network and support group within that group and help them do that. And if I get, we're getting ready to do our second workshop. The first workshop I got 2 clients from that are getting ready to start in May. So that works.
Nice.
That's another way to do it. And then of course I do my podcasts.
Yep.
I do my YouTube channel as a way to outreach. And the I have one person on my team that she does all my LinkedIn outreach just to get it started.
Mhm.
And then once someone is somewhat interested, and the way we do it is we try to get them, because I want business owners that are either business owners or CEOs of companies, and I
Mhm.
want to interview them. I
Mhm.
either want to interview them for the podcast or I want to interview them for the YouTube channel.
Sure.
And then based on what I hear, potentially, what we end up doing is I start talking to them about what some of their challenges are and struggles,
Mhm.
and then we can potentially turn that into a clientele kind of piece if that's something they want. My sales technique is I don't like to force people. I don't want people to have buyer's remorse at all. And coaching is a personal decision
Mhm.
and a personal relationship. I laugh because I get all these LinkedIn, hey, we'll get you 12 new clients and this and that. I'm like, that's not the way it works for coaching. Coaching is completely different. It's not like you're selling, lawn care service. Okay, that I get.
Yep.
Coaching is, do you and I get along?
Coaching is
And I've had
personal.
people that I've said, this isn't going to work
Yeah.
because they might know, or they might think they need a coach because someone said you need a coach. But if they aren't willing to be coached,
Mhm.
then I don't want to do it. I literally had one woman that was doing that, and I said to her, I go, this isn't working. I said, we've gone through all this stuff and you just keep, and what the biggest thing for her that drove me crazy was that I used to say to her, so you're telling your employees that you appreciate them. They did a good job. She goes, they should know they did a good job. I don't have to tell them. And I'm like, no, no, and after a couple of months trying to do that, I finally said, this isn't working. So no. So it's my choice as much as theirs. Because if I think if I can help them, then I really want to. It's my passion.
Yeah, I like that. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like, you're going through, you're using content marketing as your kind of funnel
Correct.
to qualify, right, prospects, let people get to know you. They can get a feeling and an understanding for your personality, who you are, how you behave, how you coach, and that kind of pre-qualifies anybody who's going to talk to you anyway. If they don't like you, they're not
Right.
going to reach out and say, "Hey, I want you to coach me."
Yeah.
So that's a fantastic way of doing it. That's a lot of what we do at Boxer as well, is focus on the content marketing because it's so powerful
It
um,
is.
in so many ways, because you can establish your authority in whatever niche you're focused on, get your content out there, and Like I said, if someone resonates with you, they'll reach out, and at that point, it's not a sales conversation.
Sure.
It's a timing conversation, right? If they
Absolutely.
yeah, or a fit conversation perhaps.
Yeah, and timing is the right one, the right word for me. And I always tell people this, the days of the boiler room sales guy. Hey,
Hmm.
I got 10 shares. I got 10 shares. Wait, I only got eight. I only got five. You want it? You want it, right? Those days are gone.
Always be closing.
Yeah.
Draft balls.
Yeah, no, that is not there's people that like to do that,
Hmm.
but that's not my philosophy at all.
Yeah,
My philosophy is I want people to feel good about the decision they made.
sure.
And so when they're ready, I'll be ready.
Yeah, I
And in the
think.
meantime, if you want to, and I go have coffee with people that are like, hey, I really want to hire you. There's a couple things I want to do first. I'm like, fine. When you're ready, you let me know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, yeah, I agree completely. I don't think there's another way to do it successfully, right? I mean,
Right.
if someone, especially with coaching, it's such a personal thing. Um, whether you're talking about one-on-one coaching or whether you're talking about small group coaching or
Right.
large group, course, making a course, if there's regret after the purchase, there's not going to be trust. And that trust is such a basic requirement for
Absolutely.
something like coaching where you're trusting this stranger
Yep.
to guide you from where you are to where you want to be. You've got to bridge that gap and you need help doing it and you've got to trust this other person to do it. And if you don't trust them, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had one of my clients call me this afternoon, and I was able to. He called me. I usually tell him text me, see if I have time. He just called, and I happened to have time, so I answered it. He
Yeah.
goes, "Hey, I just want to run this by you. Here's what's going on." Boom, 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 boom. Took 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Thanks so much for answering. I'm glad I was able to bounce this off of you. I know what I need to do."
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's worth its weight in gold to me. I mean, it's like because then they're going to make the right decision for their business.
Hmm.
And it's really nice. I mean, literally, I tell people, I turned 60 and I looked in the mirror and said, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Well, I'm not retiring anytime soon because I love what I do. I
Sure.
love helping companies. Um, but I just don't want I want to help more than one company at a time.
Hmm.
And so that's why I really decided to do what I do. And when I hang up, when I've helped a company, a client get through a situation, that's the biggest high I could ever get. I get up, I'm smiling,
Uh-huh.
got a little fist pump going. I'm like, this was awesome. This is why I do this, you know,
Sure.
and it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
And you want to wake up every morning excited about what the day's going to bring.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked when I worked corporate America. There were times when I'd wake up and go, crap, I got to go to work today.
Hmm.
And why? I mean, we have to work. Why can't we enjoy what we do?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. No, yeah, I think it's super, 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 super important.
Yeah.
Um, what does a typical engagement with you look like?
So the way it starts out is it's a minimum 6 months. I've had people say to me, "Can we do three?" And I go, "We need six.
Hmm.
Minimum 6 month." I do 1 year contracts. They can give me a 30-day out, after 6 months
Hmm.
if they want. No one does. Most of my engagements last years.
Hmm.
And the way that it's structured, and the team and I came up with this. This is probably the best way I can describe what it kind of looks like. Is that the beginning level is called the tandem level. So I'm going to use skydiving vernacular right now, but it's a tandem level because we're working very closely together and
Hmm.
figuring things out, kind of laying the plans out. Where do you want to be? What are you going to do? And sometimes that can be 6 months, depending on where you're at. It could be a year. I don't know. But at some point, we're like, okay, this is starting to work. We need to now set the foundation, and we call it the accelerate level
Hmm.
because we're starting to grow. And so what is the foundation? What are the systems in place that we're doing? How are we handing off to sales? What's sales doing? What does it look like in finance? And what are all those pieces that we're going to do? And what people do we need now? Because we're starting to accelerate, right?
Hmm.
So we get that all kind of laid out in the next level. And from there, we move to the momentum level, which is almost like when I talked about the free drive stuff, it was a hockey stick. Hopefully that's the case, and we can scale. But
Hmm.
scaling is the reason for that level, right?
Sure.
So how do you scale? And part of that goes back to the accelerate level where I have to work with the business owner to get out of their own way,
Hmm.
right? Because a lot of times they have to touch everything, and when they do, they're the struggle point. They're the bottleneck,
Hmm.
right? And so it's hard to grow when they have to do that. I always tell business owners, look, give your employees a job, show them what the results should be,
Hmm.
you can show them how you do it, but you don't necessarily force them to do it that way.
Mhm.
And after a while, ask them, what do you need to do your job better? And if it's within reason, give it to them, because
Mhm.
now they own that job
Mhm.
and no one's going to do it. And so you don't have to worry about that job anymore,
Yeah.
right? Anyway, so we're doing that. So we get to the momentum level. You're able to scale now. You're adding people. You're building your culture. All that stuff. And finally, what I call the top level. Now, it could take a couple of years to get there, but the goal at the pilot level is that you as a business owner now feel in control, right?
Mhm.
And maybe we're not meeting every week for an hour. Maybe we're meeting twice a month for an hour. We're just kind of doing check-ins, things like that. But my ultimate goal of the pilot is once they're confident of where they're at, I
Mhm.
want them to come back down to and meet some of the tandem level people and tell them about their journey. So
Mhm.
that the tandem level people know that it's possible to get to that level.
I love
So,
it.
but anyway, so that's what, kind of what the overall looks like. I meet with them once a week. I'm available, and usually what I do, like I have one client that's interviewing someone, they're getting ready to make their first hire. He goes, Jeff, I don't know how to interview people. I don't even know what questions to ask. Right. So I'm like, all right, fine. So I got, interview questions. So I pulled that all together, customized it towards his thing a little bit, sent it over to him. So
Mhm.
it's stuff like that where, I'm not just coaching, I'm also periodically guiding, assisting, giving them some of the tools that I, have in my, tool chest, if you will.
Mhm.
But it allows them to do a better job. And then the other thing I've done is I've built a corral of people around me that I really trust,
Mhm.
like my podcast with Jana. She's a communications and voice coach, right?
Mhm.
So if you're like one of my clients, I want to get him on a radio talk piece locally here. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to panic. I can't do that. I said, I'm going to get you with Jana. She's going to take care of you. And
Nice.
that's what she does, right? So I have all these tools. It's not just me and my experiences. I
Sure.
have people that I can go to. If you get to a place where all of a sudden you need HR, I got an HR person.
Nice.
If you get to a place where you need to hire a higher executive,
Yeah.
I got a hiring firm. If you need any kind of printing, I have cups and notebooks and pens. I have a guy for that, right? So these are people that I trust. It's not just acquaintances. These are people that I've gotten to know, which is key. It's not just someone. Hey, I met this guy on LinkedIn. He might be able to help you. That is not what I do.
Jeff, I know a guy, Sesol.
Yeah, right. Well, and that helps your network, right? And that helps you to,
Yeah.
when people come to you and go, hey Jeff, who do you know here? And then
I know a
that
guy.
starts getting, and that's how you do it. But that's important. Because
Right.
again, my theory is I don't have all the answers,
Yeah.
but I surround myself with people that can help.
Yeah, I think it was circling back to you were talking about your kind of mid-tier offering and giving people equity in whatever job it is they're doing. I think it
Mhm.
was uh, Howard Berg of Starbucks that said the person who sweeps the floor should choose the broom.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of that the first time I heard that, it struck me as very, very powerful.
Yep.
And just, we're not dealing with automatons, we're not dealing with robots, we're dealing with people. And
Yep.
those people want to be, respected, and they want to earn respect as much as anyone does.
Yep.
And yeah,
Yeah. And
given
if you just and just ask them. I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? I tell people, ask them what they need. What do you
yeah.
need to do your job better? Because you don't. And I tell the owner, I go, look, just because you wanted to do it a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way.
Hmm.
People come in with different ideas. They might be able to do it half the time and come
Hmm.
up with the same result. Why would you not want them to do that?
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, it's kind of some of the stuff that I like to do. It's fun.
So Jeff, what three books, if you had to pick, if you narrow it down to three books that you would have all of your clients read, what would those three books be?
Well, here, one of them is Getting More. So this is an interesting book. It was written by Stuart Diamond. The most ironic thing is that one of my very first companies, my first investor that I came in, Stuart Diamond was his lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And and so when I found this book probably 4 years ago, I was like taken back. I'm like, wait, I know him. But it's a great book because it's funny. I had a couple of friends. I did a couple of book clubs with people on this book. Okay, And a couple of people that knew me go, you could have written this book because it's how I believe in life, right? But
Uh-huh.
it's really all about, it's not about getting more and taking advantage of people. It's
Hmm.
really about getting more to help people be the best they can be,
Hmm.
right? Understanding a situation. For example, I was traveling to New York on a consulting gig at one time, right? It was a 6 month gig. And if you've ever traveled to New York and tried to get out of LaGuardia Airport at times on a Friday afternoon, it's a nightmare,
Hmm.
right? And people are hot headed and blah, blah, blah. So there was a guy in front of me. The flight was going to be delayed. There was a guy in front of me yelling at the flight or at the ticket person.
Hmm.
And I walked up and he left and I walked up and said, hey, I'm really sorry that happened to you. And I happen to have a brand new water. I go, would water help? And she's like, thank you so much, but no, I'm good. And her name was my lady, right? And then she said, what can I do for you? I said, obviously I'm on this flight, what's the game plan? And I was just really nice to her.
Sure.
Okay. So the funny part was now over a 6 month period, I'm sure that those flights got delayed at least a dozen times.
Sure.
Right. But because I was so nice to her that one time, every time I would come up and she called me Blue Eyes, because I have blue eyes, of course, people can't see that, but I'd walk up and I go, hey, my lady. She goes, hey, Blue Eyes, to the point where she's like, hey, your flight's delayed. Probably isn't going to get until 9. I got you a seat on the 8 o'clock flight. Here's your ticket. I didn't even ask for it. She was taking care of me because she would see my name. And there's another one where she's like, hey, I got you on standby. Go down and talk to so-and-so down there, and she's going to get you on the flight. I'm like,
Nice.
okay. So because every time I was nice to her. Once in a while I'd bring her, some flowers because she was always that nice, right? But it's that kind of give and take. And that's what Stuart Diamond talks about in the book.
Yeah.
He talks about how much more you can get if you just treat people like people.
Hmm.
That's the ultimate thing. And he's got theories, and he even talks about negotiation in here, like how to get the most out of negotiation. And at one point, he laughs because he says there's a book about how to negotiate with the Japanese, and he goes, like all Japanese people are the same. They're all going to negotiate the same. No, because that's not how you do it. You just got to go into it with certain aspects, but it's all about them. You make it about them.
Hmm.
When you make it about them, then you're going to end up getting more. And he said, look, if you're cutting a deal, the worst thing you can do is make the person feel like they gave into you and you got more than they got. And you never want to do that, because then the next time they're not going to want to, partner with you or negotiate with you.
Yeah.
So that's one of those that's really good. There's another one that was, gosh, I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it had to do with, and I'll think of it in a minute, with integrators and visionaries.
Hmm.
Um,
Rocket fuel.
Rocket Fuel.
Yeah.
Great
Gina.
book. Love that one because I'm a firm believer that there are in this world and there's integrators in this world. And if you get the right two people together,
Yeah.
I mean, think about all the great companies. Walt Disney had his brother, right?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, John Rockefeller had, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but had a second in command, right? Jobs had Wozniak,
Yeah. Yeah.
Gates had Allen, right? There's
Hmm.
all these. When you get the right team together, sky's the limit. Sky's the
Hmm.
limit. And then probably the third one, and I'm looking over here to see, but and I kind of like this one a lot. It's called the 12-week year.
Okay.
And the reason I like this one is that the mistake businesses make is they do planning for a year.
Hmm.
And the reality is at the end of the year, it's too late to make changes.
Hmm.
But if you can look at your 12 weeks and identify where the shortfalls are coming, you can make changes so that overall the year actually ends up making sense.
Hmm.
And you can see what's going on. I mean, that's the biggest struggle. Everyone's like, oh, I'm planning for next year. And they lay out all these budgets and all this other stuff. And the reality is, and then the first quarter crashes.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's look at that first quarter and see what we need to do to change.
Yeah.
Right. So you look at every 12 weeks as a year.
Yeah.
And you start breaking it down that way. And I thought it was done very, very well.
I love that. I love that. I think, yeah, I mean, with Boxer, with my agency, where we're at our level, we've got 7 full-timers on board, and we're at a level where it doesn't even make sense for us to plan a full year out.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. So we do 13 weeks, which is about a
Okay.
quarter.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, and it just, because that way it just keeps you more agile, more flexible,
Yep.
because you don't know what kind of curveballs you're going to get in the next 13 weeks.
It's called a pandemic. Everything's shut down.
Right. Well, that's great, man. Jeff, is there anything else that you would like to chat about that we have not had an opportunity yet to touch upon?
No, I mean, I think this was a really great conversation, kind of in depth. I think you have a good understanding of my theories and philosophies and just who I am as a person.
Yeah.
Again, my passion is just to help companies, right? So understand what your passion is, because company owners have a passion. They started out for a reason, right? By the way, the pandemic created probably, I think we're at 12 million last year. 12 million new businesses started last year, where, a couple of years previous, it was only at about 8. So think
Wow.
about that number. And that's 2 years running. So 2021, 2022, each had almost 25 new businesses started over the last 2 years, which is insane.
Yep.
But I love that whole fact because, that's where new innovations, new ideas, new thoughts, the staunchiness of corporate America, and, the way that they run things doesn't have to be. And you can be successful in your business. But as you identified, I believe every business should have some kind of coach. And people say to me, I'll say this too. People say to me, "Where are you certified?" And I go, "In life."
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. It's like going to college, right? You come out of college, you have a degree, you go to coaching, you get certified.
Mm-hmm.
But situation occurs, are you going to know how to deal with it? No.
Mm-hmm.
All the certifications do is tell you step-by-step things you want to go through.
Mm-hmm.
But here's my thing. It goes back to Stuart Diamond saying, not all Japanese negotiate the same, right? Not all businesses are the same, and they're in different places. And so you can't start them all at level 1. I do a tandem level, but everyone's at different places, right? I got one company that's been in business for 13 years. I got one that, the tea tree company, when they get going, they're just starting out. They're just newer, right? And so you got to be flexible and understand the situations and just be able to, there's no formula there. The basic formula is to focus on those 5 areas that I talk about, and let's just make sure those are solid, because that's going to allow you to scale. And just because you've been in business for 5 years doesn't mean you shouldn't be going back to look at those areas and seeing where you're at.
Yeah.
Because your marketing could change. You're all of a sudden something could happen. Your messaging could change, right? And that's one of my biggest things. I tell people, like you guys are a boxer. If I was to ask you what what you do, and you would give me the pitch, I would ask the other 7 people, they all tell me the same story. Right. And that's important. And I tell my clients that all the time. I got one that's got 15 people. I go, if I walk around, would everyone tell me the same story? And what's important about that is they're your salespeople. They go to a party, someone says, "Oh, hey, hi, where are you at now? What are you doing these days?"
Yeah.
You never know where the next lead's going to come from, but you want to make sure that the message is crystal clear. And so I always encourage my clients, no matter what level they're at, how many years they've been in business, we're going to take a step back. We're going to do a brand workshop, and we're going to look at your brand. We're going to look at your messaging. We're going to look at all that stuff, right? And make sure that is this still what you want to say? Is this still where you want to be? Is this the look you still want?
Yeah.
Things change, So anyway, that's a lot of what I do.
No, that's great, Jeff. And I think, I think there's a place for coaching certifications, and the best coaches that I know are not the best because of their certifications. And in fact, one of them,
I agree with that.
on top of my head, is not certified in anything at all. But he's the best coach, certainly the best coach that I've met. I think for being a coach, it's more important to have experience in business and in life, and to have disparate experiences doing lots of different things, because what you want to be able to do as a coach, in my experience, is look at problems and be able to attack them from different perspectives, right? Being able to see one problem from 4 or 5 different perspectives because of things that you've experienced throughout life gives you this idiosyncratic kind of approach that no one else is going to have, certainly not in the business, because they're too close to it, right? We talked about that before. And it allows you to just see things so differently. And that is what can really make a coach so powerful, because then you can kind of reframe any problem in a different
Right,
way, whatever's going to be most effective for your client, for who you're working with, for who you're trying to
right,
get, bridge that gap from where they're at to where they want to be.
right. I agree. I agree. And I agree. Certifications are good. I'm not arguing that. What I'm saying is that it's not something that I did.
Yeah.
When people ask me, are you certified in certain things? I'm like, no, I'm not, because what you just described,
And I
we used
think,
to, one of my friends used to play this game. What hasn't Jeff done? Because I've done so many things over my life.
sure.
I've tried all these little businesses here and there, and some have been successful, some have failed. And you learn as much from the failures as you do from the successes. And
100%.
it's just where I'm at in my life right now, and it's a lot of fun to be able to leverage those experiences for my clients.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And honestly, like I feel the same way about college degrees, right? If you want to go out and be a surgeon, you better get your college degree. You know what I mean? You got to go to school for that. And if you want to go to school and get your MBA, maybe, perhaps not, perhaps you're better off starting a business and using, the $200,000 that it's going to cost you to get an MBA, use that to get educated in an actual business and see what that's like. What might you learn in the school of hard knocks and, being on the street, like not on the street, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but well, it's interesting because I have this conversation a lot, and I tell people, look, where you start and where you're going to end up in a year is not where you think you're going to be. You can write the best business plan in the world, and trust me, within 6 months, it's probably no good.
Yeah.
You got to revamp it. There are those that have worked. Don't get me wrong, but most of the time, things happen that you don't expect. How could you forecast that, right? You forecast sales and the sales didn't happen, right? And so now where are you, right? You thought you'd have this much sales in 6 months, and you got to be able to maneuver and change and alter that kind of stuff, and just be ready. Be ready. When things change, and that's why I like all those books that I gave you, just because every one of those is a good foundational piece to think about as you're going through things.
Mm-hmm.
The 12-week year, is great. How to get more from Stuart is amazing. And Rocket Fuel just kind of really makes you think sometimes that you need to have that second person, because there's some great visionaries. Like when we did Free Drive, my business partner Mike was he literally would draw me things on a napkin. He's like, "You think we can do this?" And I'd go, "Yeah, I think I got this." And then I'd go make it happen, right? Because he was a great visionary as to how things should work, and I was the integrator to make it all happen.
Nice.
That was my role.
Awesome. Jeff, you mentioned you have a book
Yes.
in editing right now. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? When does that come out? Where can we?
Sure. Yeah, I'm hoping that's going to come out probably by May. I'm excited about that. It basically kind of goes through just different aspects of what it's going to take to be successful and to grow your people, right? So I talk about 2% change. I talk about managing yourself in time. I talk about kind of my history about culture. How, leadership is important. So I talk about all these different aspects, ultimately, that builds a good culture. That's the reason for the book.
Nice.
I'm a big advocate that you just need to have a culture that's appreciative of your people and rewarding of your people, and things like that. And I'm just excited about it. I think it really, from my first attempt at it, really came out to a place where I was able to just share my experiences. There's a lot of stories in there, but I was able to share my experiences as to why I believe what I believe, and why Pull the Chute is what it is today.
Fantastic, Jeff. If you want to reach back out to me when you get a release date for that book, we'll update that on the show notes for this podcast. And where can our listeners and viewers connect with you online?
A couple different places. Obviously, go to pullthechute.net. And you'll find all our podcasts there. You'll find our YouTube channel videos there. Blogs are there. There's a lot of resources that are there. If you want to talk to me personally, jeff@pullthechute.net is my email. Or I'm in the Nashville area. If you're in the area, you can give me a ring, 615-572-9500. Comes to me, text me and say I'm in the area. I'd love to have a coffee. I spend a lot of time doing those kind of things because you never know where you're going to meet the next person that needs your help, or how you're going to meet them. But I'm always open to, having coffees here or lunch there, and just getting to know people. I mean, that's the key, right? We kind of fell out of that for a while. I think it's an interesting time.
Yeah.
Pandemic forced us to not only realize who we were as humans, and that we did have families, and that it wasn't all about work,
Hmm.
but that it also, after the pandemic, that we were made to be in communication with people. We were not made to be alone. We were made to to be around people, to talk to people face to face, and I think that's key. And I think we're getting back to that, and I think it's important. And I think it's going to change the way that we do business, going forward.
Fantastic. Awesome. Jeff Sesol, thank you so much for making time to chat with me here. I appreciate it.
No problem, Michael. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. It was a blast. We'll
Thank you.
talk soon.
Thank you. And thank you to our viewers and listeners. We'll see you guys next time. Cheers.